And now I get to introduce to you somebody that you already know and probably love as much as me. Beth Gordon is a spiritual practitioner. She is a teacher of A Course in Miracles, an incredible teacher of A Course in Miracles. She's one of our teachers at Miracles Live 365. She's a member of our board here at Speakeasy, and she has been with the community really since the inception and before the inception of this community, helping to breathe life into this idea. And that's what she's here to talk to us about how to bring more life into your experience. She is a very dear friend and a co-teacher of many of the other programs that we offer here at Speakeasy, specifically the Maiden Voyage Tribe, or if you were one of the members on Voice, Visibility, and Value, you got to see some of her magic. She is an impeccable consciousness, and we are so grateful that she is here to share her wisdom and help us to figure out how to breathe more life into our lives. And I invite you to give a warm welcome to our dear friend, Beth Gordon.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. And I came to talk to you today about life and about true power and the number 18. And the idea to speak on this topic came from a conversation that Maureen and I had. And I told her that I tithe and I give gifts in multiples of 18. And she's like, what's that all about? Well, do you all remember the movie Fiddler on the Roof? And in that movie, there's a song, To Life. Remember that one? To life, l'chaim, 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 to life. The main character, Tevye's daughter, is engaged to be married, and they're celebrating and toasting with wine and singing. In Hebrew, the word la is two, and chaim is life in its plural form. So this literally translates as two lives. It acknowledges that we're really not here to live alone, but to share our lives. And when you toast l'chaim, you're saying, may your lives be filled with love, life-affirming life, and draw down God's peace and blessings. So let's look at this a little bit closer. The singular form or root of the word chaim is chai. And chai is spelled with two Hebrew letters, chet and yud. The letters also represent numbers, as every Hebrew word also has a numerical value. The chet is 8, the yud is 10, so the word chai is the number 18. In Jewish communities, it's a common practice to give monetary gifts in multiples of 18, $18, $36, $180, $1,800 if you're lucky. And in so doing, you're giving chai, which imbues the monetary gift with a blessing, the blessing of life, infinite, loving, happy, healthy, prosperous, life-affirming life. May you draw God's peace and blessings into your life with this gift. Isn't that beautiful? When I learned about that practice, I loved it so much that I began to incorporate it into my own life. And it elevates a simple gift giving practice from something to check off your to-do list mechanically to something sacred. Before I ever learned about the practice of giving chai, I still had a thing for the number 18. When I was a kid, I could not wait until I was 18. 18 years of age was not only the future, it was to me when I could finally be stepping into my own power. It was the legal drinking age back then. It was also the age at which you were considered to be a legal adult. And what it really meant to me was that I no longer had to ask my parents' permission to make decisions about my life. I could make my own way. And I look forward to it with excitement and joyful anticipation. And I felt that spark of life just thinking about it. And at that time for me, it was about having physical power in a physical world. And it led me to become a physical therapist because I was going to be the power in my own life. Well, as I moved along my journey in life, I began to feel depleted. And so I moved beyond this physical power I was experiencing into the realm of spiritual power. And it was in my training to be a spiritual practitioner through the study of many great spiritual teachers that I learned about the one life, one power, one presence that God is, source for everything, everyone, infinite. God is infinite love. Well, this changed things for me. I began to look at life differently than from the point of a judgmental God that people feared. I realized that God is my source, not my parents, not even me by myself or any other person. God is. And God is infinite love. Wow, what a game changer. I could feel more life force coming back into me again and a sense of relief that I did not have to do it all myself. So, one of my practices as I went about my daily round to help me remember this was to say all day long to myself, everything I do with God. Everything I do with love. And in so doing, I was plugged in to infinite source, infinite supply of God, and it turned the mundane into the sacred. It made washing dishes an energizing experience. I was now generating energy in love, and everything I did connected. I felt better. I had more life flowing through me, and I was extending chai to myself. I enjoyed life so much more. And it was this practice that really anchored me in a personal relationship with my own divine. So the practice of giving gifts in multiples of 18, giving chai, began to come together with this new practice. And in my mind, I took the numbers in 18 and the one became one life, one power, one presence that God is. And the number 8 became like a vertical infinity symbol representing the infinite nature of God, the infinite love of God, the infinite wisdom of God, the infinite abundance of God. Well, you get the idea. So now 18 represents for me the one infinite creative power of God, of life that God is. And it's also this blessing of extending life, extending chai. And so I began consistently giving in multiples of 18, wherever I went. 18, one infinite power. That's life. So if I'm honest, I'll also say sometimes I give 81, $81, the infinite one. It still helps me remember something beyond myself. So as I do this, I get out of my own way. I remember my higher power, God, in every act. When I tip, I like to tip 18%. I'm giving the tip infused with the blessing of life, and I'm remembering God's infinite love. And when I tithe, I give in 18s. And when I give gifts, if it's money, I give in multiples of 18. And it's just one small way that I remember there is so much more here in every moment than just me. And it takes me beyond the physical dimension to the infinite and to my true source of power. So, what is it to make a connection beyond this, the physical to the infinite? Well, we all know a house is just a house. It's not really a home until it's filled with life and love and people and animals. It's that love and life lived in the space that takes it from just a thing, just a house, to a home, to a sanctuary or a place of celebration. And there are so many ways in which this can be expressed. Anything given or done with the blessing of life and love is a completely different experience than without it. We all know what it's like to sit and eat a meal prepared by someone we love who loves us with love, where as we're eating, we're loving being in each other's company and sharing life together versus grabbing some fast food and just getting some food in your body. One is a life affirming and sacred experience imbued with life force, and the other's more like checking something off the checklist. When I was growing up and I got new clothes, my mother would always say, wear them in good health. So even though we were checking off getting whatever clothes I needed on the list, she was giving me a blessing. She was unifying with the infinite nature of love and extending it to me through those clothes. I never met my grandfather, but I heard all my life about his milkshakes. My parents and all my cousins would talk about how good Grandpa's milkshakes were, and they always said that the secret ingredient was love. Well, that love is eternal because long after Grandpa died, his love is still here in the memory of his milkshakes. And this is the ingredient that makes a difference in everything, whether it's a house, it's clothing, a milkshake, a monetary gift, anything. So giving chai is blessing by extending loving life, and it's represented by the number 18. So what is life? If we look at the dictionary definition of life, it says the period between the birth and death of a living thing, especially a human being. And for humans, the lifespan is currently somewhere between 120 and 125 years, but the current life expectancy for people in the US is 78.93 years. Well, that's not really what we're talking about here. So let's look at another definition of life. The condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death. This latter definition alludes to the life force that flows through animals, plants, and humans. But what we're really talking about here is the spirit of life and love imbued in everything. What we say, everything we do, as we go about living in this world, it is the animating force of everything in the universe. This is a quote that I've had up in my office for 10 years. And Joni, would you put it in the chat, please? It's from Ernest Holmes, who has this to say about life from his book, This Thing Called Life. There is a universal wholeness seeking expression through everything. Here, we're calling it simple life. The religionist calls it God. The philosopher calls it reality. Life is infinite energy coupled with limitless creative imagination. It is the invisible essence and substance of every visible form. Its nature is goodness, truth, wisdom, and beauty, as well as energy and imagination. Our highest satisfaction comes from a sense of conscious union with this invisible life. All human endeavors are an attempt to get back to first principles to find such an inward wholeness that all sense of fear, doubt, and uncertainty vanishes. God is life, not some life, but all life. God is action, not some action, but all action. God is power, not some power, but all power. God is presence, not some presence, but all presence. God is pure spirit filling all space. This pure spirit animates every act. There is a real you that lives in a real God, and the two are one. To know this is to understand the secret of life. To realize this is to understand your relationship with the divine presence. To realize that the law of God is written in your own mind is to make available to you a power which can meet every need. Now that's what we're talking about here. And when we forget this presence, life can become messy, very, very messy, unmanageable. We can even become like the walking dead. So how do we know if we have forgotten this presence? Well, Angeles Arian teaches in the fourfold way that there are 4 questions when anyone becomes dispirited, depressed, disconnected, like the walking dead. And these are, when did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? When did you stop enjoying telling the story of your life? When did you stop enjoying the sweet stillness of silence? In A Course in Miracles, it says in chapter 27, into eternity where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. And then there's anything we give our power away to something in the world and we forget that divine presence part. It could be alcohol, drugs, sex, money, gambling, shopping, another person. Anyone in a 12-step program can tell you that the first step is to acknowledge that their life has become unmanageable, very, very messy. The true source of power is not in a substance or in a thing or in another person. So we know we have forgotten the true source of our life power and all of our blessings. When we have stopped laughing, we've stopped singing, we've stopped dancing, we've stopped enjoying telling the story of our life, we've stopped enjoying the sweet stillness of silence, and when our life has become very unmanageable. So why don't we remember this presence all the time? Why do we forget? Well, we can forget sometimes because we have been given free will and we can choose love or fear. And fear can show up in so many ways: judgment, criticism, doubt, worry. And going down that path, as we all do sometimes, it separates us from remembering, from our source, from God. And when we choose love and remember God's infinite love, we're plugged in again. Fire in the hands of love cooks your food and warms your home. But in the hands of fear, it becomes an instrument of terror. Again, there is a real you which lives in a real God, and the two are one. To know this is to understand the secret of life. To realize this is to understand your relationship with the divine presence. To realize that the law of God is written in your own mind is to make available to you a power which can meet every need. It's so important to remember this, especially when we're faced with those difficult life choices. Do I stay in the painful relationship when it feels just as painful to live? Do I leave the job that has become unfulfilling when I feel terrified of financial insecurity? We're all faced with these life challenges at one time or another. So what can we do about it? The first thing is just to become aware. Stop. Take a breath and realize I must have separated from my source because I feel afraid. And then remember, right here, God is. In Science of Mind, it's said like this: there is a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. So whenever we feel afraid, it's good to remember this. Here's a passage from A Course in Miracles to help shift this mindset. And Elizabeth shared this one last week. What could you not accept if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good? I bring it up again because guess which paragraph in lesson 135 that quote comes from? Yep, you guessed it, paragraph 18. It moves us beyond our perception of limitations to remember the infinite creative power that's ever present and available to us, even when we're finding something hard to accept, past our defenses and into the realm of possibility, infinite possibility. In 12-step programs, the second step is to recognize a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity. So again, it's to remember the infinite creative power of God. And the third step is to make a decision to turn your will and life over to the care of God as we understand God. So it's not about, I'm going to do it, but surrendering to that infinite love, that infinite intelligence of God. So this is the nature of life, to remember our relationship with this divine presence and then to forget it. And then we do that, we forget who we are, and we need each other to remember. This is why we need to have a powerful spiritual practice to help us remember in the day in to day out, to remember that the two are one. So many ways of doing this: meditation, time in silence, prayer, journaling, dancing, singing, laughing, storytelling, art, time in nature, anything that helps you move beyond your circumstances to the infinite and tune into the still small voice within. Again, to realize this is to understand your relationship with the divine presence. To realize that the law of God is written in your own mind is to make available to you a power which can meet every need. And this is also what healthy family and loving community is all about, to help each other remember our true source of power of life and to keep blessing each other with our love. In A Course in Miracles in chapter 2, it says, God extended himself to his creations and imbued them the same loving will to create. So we always have the option to extend God's love, God's peace, God's life force, to be extensions of God's love. This is creation. It's the proper use of our creative power, extending life, affirming life, and more life. It's the same thing with giving chai. So the idea here is not to remember the Hebrew word chai or the number 18. It's not about the signs and symbols of life. It's about the power behind it. It's about what makes you actually fill and flow with life force and love. It's about what actually breathes life into you and then extend it to others. To sense into the energy of love and life and the feeling of coming alive, it is to remember the presence of the infinite in everything, whether you're paying bills, driving, doing dishes, laundry, whatever it is. Remembering this takes the mundane and miraculously turns it into something extraordinary, an absolute pleasure, something sacred and blissful. So now it's your turn. What helps you stay connected? What makes you come alive? What lights you up? What helps you remember that you are one with all of life and that you are love, that you are loved, that you are powerful, and that all things are possible when you remember the infinite power of life, the infinite creative power you are given by God. Kalidasa, India's Shakespeare, wrote this beautiful poem about living life. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. For in its brief course lie all the realities and verities of existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of action, the glory of power. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow only a vision. Yet every day well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. So look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation of the ever new dawn. If we all did this and noticed when we or others were not singing, not dancing, not enjoying life, and we lift ourselves and each other, extending God's love, and to create a culture, a way of being that is alive and promotes or sustains a sense of aliveness and connection and true power, we would be using our creative power in the most powerful and sacred way. And that's my invitation, to everyone here at Speakeasy and to everyone in your life. So, in closing, may God's peace and blessings be in all of your lives. To life, l'chaim.
Yay, beautiful. Thank you so much, Beth, for that beautiful talk.